My wife gave me two choices. Overlook her seeing her ex again, or stay away while they spent time together. I chose the third option. Pack your bags before this gets out of hand. My name is Derek Nolan, and I am the owner of Nolan's Auto Repair on the outskirts of Bayport in Maine. Nothing fancy, but it pays the bills and puts food on the table, or at least it did. The front door opened with that familiar creak I had been meaning to fix for months. Vanessa's heels clicked on the hardwood floor, each step deliberate and sharp. She appeared in the kitchen doorway, still wearing that black dress I bought her for our anniversary last year. Her lipstick was smudged, and her hair looked like she had run her fingers through it. "You are up late," she said without meeting my eyes. She walked over to the sink and poured herself a glass of water, her movements careful and controlled. "I could not sleep," I replied, keeping my voice steady. The funny thing about insomnia is that it makes you notice things you usually miss, like the fact that you have been coming home later and later these past 2 months. Vanessa turned around, leaning against the counter. Even at almost 3 in the morning, she looked calm, as if she had rehearsed this moment. "We need to talk, Derek. I am listening." She took a deep breath, and for a fraction of a second, I thought I saw something resembling regret cross her face. Then it vanished, replaced by that cold determination I had been seeing more and more lately. "I am not happy," she said. "I have not been for a long time. This marriage, this life we built together, it is not enough anymore." I put down my coffee mug, the ceramic making a soft clink against the wood. "Not enough anymore. That is an interesting way to put it, Vanessa. Care to elaborate? Do not make this harder than it has to be." She crossed her arms over her chest. "I am seeing Trent Caldwell again." Trent Caldwell, her high school boyfriend, the golden boy who left town for college and came back 5 years ago with a fancy business degree and a boat brokerage at the marina. The same Trent who had been orbiting Vanessa ever since he returned, always finding excuses to drop by her office at Bayport Marine Supply. "How long?" I asked. "Does it matter?" "It matters to me." She sighed, as if my need to know was an inconvenience. 3 months. 3 months. While I was working 14-hour days to keep the shop afloat, while I was bringing her coffee in bed every morning and asking how her day went every evening, she was planning her exit strategy. "So what happens now?" I asked. "You want a divorce? We split everything down the middle and go our separate ways." Vanessa's laugh was bitter. "It is not that simple, Derek. Trent and I want to be together, really together. But we are not ready to go public yet. His business is still getting established, and my position at the company requires a certain image." I felt something cold settle in my chest. "What exactly are you asking me to do, Vanessa?" She finally met my eyes, and I saw no shame in them, no guilt, just a cold calculation. "I am giving you 2 choices. You can stay married to me and look the other way while I see Trent. Or you can make yourself scarce when we need privacy. Think of it as an arrangement that works for everyone." "An arrangement?" I repeated slowly, tasting the bitterness of the word. "You want me to be your cover while you carry on this inappropriate relationship with your former boyfriend? I want you to be practical. We both know you cannot afford to lose half of everything in a divorce. The shop is barely breaking even, and this house is the only asset we have. Trent has connections, resources. He can help us both out if we handle this maturely." I stood up from the table, my chair scraping against the floor. Vanessa took a small step back, and I realized she was nervous. Good, she should be. "You know what, Vanessa? You are right, I do have 2 choices." I stepped close enough to see the golden flecks in her brown eyes. "But you forgot option number 3. "What is option number 3? I smiled, and it was not a kind smile. "Option number 3 is that you start packing your bags before I decide to have a little chat with Trent and tell him to keep his distance from my wife." Vanessa's confidence cracked a little. "You cannot threaten him, Derek. That is not right. Did I threaten anyone? I just said I wanted to have a chat. Trent is a reasonable guy, right? I am sure we can work this out man to man." "You are being ridiculous. This does not have to get ugly." "Ugly?" My laugh echoed off the kitchen walls. "Vanessa, you just asked me to accept your inappropriate relationship with my blessing. We passed ugly about 3 sentences ago." She squared her shoulders, putting on that professional mask she wore to work. "Fine. If that is how you want to play it, I am staying at Kayla's tonight. We can discuss this like adults when you have had time to calm down. You do that. Say hi to Kayla for me. I am sure she has been very supportive during your little crisis of conscience." Vanessa grabbed her purse from the counter and headed for the door. She stopped in the doorway, looking back at me. This does not have to destroy everything we built, Derek. Think about what I am offering. I will think about it, I said. I will think about it very seriously. After she left, I sat back down and stared at the closed door. The house felt different now, as if something fundamental had shifted in its foundation. I picked up my phone and scrolled through my contacts until I found Trent's number. My thumb hovered over the call button for a long time before I set the phone down. Not yet. If Vanessa wanted to play games, I needed to understand the rules first. I went up to our bedroom and opened Vanessa's jewelry box. Hidden beneath her earrings was a spare key to her car. I slipped it into my pocket, then walked over to her dresser, pulling open the bottom drawer where she kept her old diaries and photo albums. Tucked behind a stack of college yearbooks was her tablet, the one she claimed was broken. The screen lit up when I pressed the power button. It was not broken at all. I knew Vanessa's passwords. After 8 years of marriage, you tend to remember those things. Her tablet synced with her phone, which meant I had access to her texts, her emails, everything. I told myself I was only confirming what I already knew. But as I scrolled through weeks of messages between Vanessa and Trent, I realized I had been naive about the depth of this betrayal. The messages were very personal and detailed, completely devoid of remorse. They had been planning this for months, not 3. Trent had coached her on what to say to me, on how to handle the conversation. There were messages about hotel reservations, about the times I would be at the shop, about how to manage their situation until Trent's business was stable enough for him to go public. But it was the group chat that really made my hands shake. Vanessa, her best friend Kayla, and her coworker Lindsay had been discussing the whole situation like it was a drama. They called me the mechanic and made jokes about my ignorance. Kayla had even suggested that Vanessa try to make me accept the arrangement, calling it the perfect solution for a modern woman. Lindsay's contribution was particularly telling. Just make sure you get it in writing. You would not want him to change his mind and cause trouble later. I set the tablet down and walked over to the window, looking out at the empty driveway. The streetlight bathed everything in a pale yellow glow, making the familiar neighborhood feel strange and freezing cold. Vanessa thought she was offering me a choice, but she had already made her decision months ago. She had planned this whole conversation, probably rehearsed it with her friends. They had all had a good laugh at poor, unaware Derek and how easily he would be manipulated. I pulled out my phone, opened my notes app, and typed a single line. Let the games begin. I did not sleep a wink. Instead, I spent the pre-dawn hours planning. By the time the sun rose over Bayport Harbor, I had a list of 17 different ways to complicate Vanessa's life. I decided to start with the practical things. At 6 in the morning, I drove to the shop and backed Vanessa's Toyota Camry into Bay 3. Hank Rossi, my lead mechanic and the closest thing I had to a best friend, arrived an hour later with coffee and donuts from Betty's Diner. Boss, why is Mrs. Nolan's car here? Does it need fixing? Hank was 62, built like a fire hydrant, and had been working on cars since long before I was born. He had taught me half of what I knew about engines and everything I knew about handling difficult customers. More importantly, he was fiercely loyal and had never much cared for Vanessa. Vanessa and I are having some marital issues, I said, popping the Camry's hood. She decided she needed to step back and figure things out. Step back, huh? Hank sipped his coffee and watched me disconnect the battery. That is what my second wife said right before she ran off with that insurance salesman from Portland. Vanessa is not running off. She is just exploring her options with Trent Caldwell. Hank nearly choked on his coffee. Trent Caldwell? The pretty boy with his own boat business? Well, that explains why she has been dressing to the nines for work lately. I saw her at the grocery store last week wearing more makeup than a carnival worker. He paused, studying my face. So, what is the plan, boss? I pulled the spark plugs from the engine and set them on my workbench. The plan is to give Vanessa exactly what she asked for, space. By creating a few logistical challenges with her car that might help her think more clearly about her priorities. Hank grinned from ear to ear. I like the way you think. What do you need me to do? While Hank drained the oil from Vanessa's car and replaced it with water, I walked into the office and made a few phone calls. The first was to our bank, where I explained to the manager that I suspected fraudulent activity on our joint accounts and needed them temporarily frozen. The second was to the DMV, where I confirmed that Vanessa's car was registered solely in my name, a decision we had made years ago for insurance purposes. The third call was to my lawyer, Greg Harlan, who had handled the paperwork when I bought the shop. "Derek, good to hear from you. What can I do for you?" "I need to know my options," I said. "Vanessa is having an inappropriate relationship, and she wants me to just accept the situation. Legally speaking, where do I stand?" Greg was quiet for a moment. "Maine is a no-fault divorce state, so the affair will not affect the division of assets. But if she makes unreasonable demands or tries to force you into an arrangement you do not want, that is different. Are you considering divorce?" "I am considering everything." "Can you draw up some papers?" "Nothing final, just something outlining what a divorce would look like financially. I can have something ready by tomorrow afternoon." "Derek, whatever you are planning, make sure you stay on the right side of the law." "Always do, Greg. Always do." By noon, I had listed Vanessa's car for sale on 3 different websites. The asking price was dirt cheap, firm, cash only, immediate pickup required. I got 4 serious inquiries within 2 hours. I was updating the listings when my phone rang. Vanessa's number. "Derek, where is my car? I went out to Kayla's driveway this morning, and it was gone." "Your car is fine. It is getting a full service." "What kind of service?" "It was running perfectly yesterday. Preventative stuff. Oil change, tune-up, brake inspection. You know how much safety means to me." There was a long silence. "I need my car, Derek. I have to work. Kayla can drop you off, or maybe Trent can swing by and pick you up. I thought you two were spending more time together anyway. Do not be petty. When will it be ready?" "Hard to say. These things take time. Could be a few days, or longer. Depends on what we find when we dig deeper into the engine." Vanessa's voice grew sharper. "What is wrong with the engine?" "Nothing that cannot be fixed for the right price." She hung up on me. I was still smiling when Hank walked into the office, wiping his hands on a rag. "The car is ready for its new owner," he said. "Though I pity whoever buys it. It is going to need a lot of work before it runs again. Do not worry about it. The buyer is getting exactly what they pay for." At 3:15 in the afternoon, a college kid from Portland showed up with $2,000 in cash and a trailer. Vanessa's Toyota Camry disappeared down the coastal road, off to its new life as a fixer-upper project car. I deposited the cash into my personal account, the one Vanessa did not have access to. That evening, I drove to the Rusty Anchor, Bayport's only real bar and the unofficial headquarters for local gossip. Rita Barnes had been a waitress there for 15 years, and she knew more about the town's secrets than the mayor's wife. "Derek Nolan," she exclaimed as I walked in. "We have not seen you around here in months. What brings you to my establishment on a Tuesday night?" "Figured I would catch up on the news, see what is going on in town." Rita slid a beer over to me without asking. "The news, huh? Well, let us see. The Wilkins marriage is falling apart because he cannot stop betting on football games. Evelyn Grant's daughter got accepted into nursing school but cannot afford the tuition. And Trent Caldwell has been buying a lot of overpriced champagne lately, always for 2. Trent Caldwell, the boat guy himself. A real charmer, that Trent. Always has been, since high school. Sure, but charm does not always translate to morals, if you catch my drift." I took a sip of my beer. "How so?" Rita leaned across the bar, lowering her voice. "Trent has quite a reputation with the ladies. Always has. His business partner, Matt Whitaker, comes in here sometimes after their meetings. Matt is the nervous type, always worrying about something. Last week, he was saying that Trent's personal life was going to ruin the business if he was not more careful." "Careful about what?" "His choice of targets. Matt's exact words were getting involved with married women. It is bad for business, especially when their husbands have friends in town." I finished my beer and left a generous tip. "Thanks for the chat, Rita. Always very enlightening." "Anytime, Derek. Take care of yourself." "Will do." I drove home through the quiet streets of Bayport, passing the harbor where Trent had his office, passing the marine supply company where Vanessa worked, passing all the familiar landmarks of a life that had just gotten a lot more complicated. My phone buzzed with a text from Vanessa. "We need to talk tomorrow after work." I replied, looking forward to it. Vanessa showed up at the shop the next afternoon driving Kayla's silver Lexus. She parked near the office and sat in the car for a solid minute before getting out, probably psyching herself up for the conversation. I watched her through the window, noticing how she checked her reflection in the side mirror before heading for the door. "Derek, We need to discuss this situation like adults. Come on in. Hank, take 15. Hank nodded and headed outside, not without shooting Vanessa a look that could have frozen the entire harbor. Once we were alone, Vanessa sat across from my desk, crossing her legs and folding her hands in her lap. Professional mode, just like at the bank or the lawyer's office. For starters, I want my car back immediately. Your car was sold. The professional mask slipped. Sold? You cannot sell my car. Actually, I can. It was in my name, remember? For insurance purposes, you said. It seemed like a smart financial move at the time. Vanessa's face went pale. That car was worth $8,000. I got $2,000 for it. Cash sale, no financing hassles. Sometimes you just have to take what the market gives you. $2,000? Derek, that is robbery. That is business. Speaking of which, I froze our joint accounts until we can sort out our financial situation. Seemed prudent given the circumstances. Vanessa stood up, her hands clenched into fists. You cannot do that. I need access to that money. I have bills, responsibilities. So do I. The loan on this place, equipment financing, business insurance. The funny thing about responsibilities, Vanessa, is that they do not just disappear because you are having a crisis. It is not a crisis. It is just me trying to find a little happiness in a marriage that has not worked for years. I leaned back in my chair, studying her face. When did it stop working? Was it before or after you started planning your relationship with Trent? I never planned anything. It just happened. Really? Because I have text messages that suggest otherwise. Lots of texts. Very personal ones. Vanessa's composure completely shattered. You snooped through my phone. Your tablet, actually. The one that was supposedly broken. Amazing how technology works these days. Cloud storage, automatic syncing. A person's whole life just floating freely in cyberspace. She sank back into her chair. What do you want, Derek? I want my wife back. The one I married 8 years ago before she decided our life together was not exciting enough anymore. But that woman seems to be gone. So, I will settle for honesty. I was honest with you. No, you were strategic. There is a difference. Being honest would have been coming to me 6 months ago and telling me you were not happy. Being honest would have been suggesting couples counseling, a trial separation, or any of the dozens of other ways married people handle their problems. Being strategic was planning your exit while keeping me on the hook as a safety net. Vanessa was quiet for a long time. When she spoke again, her voice was softer. I never wanted it to happen this way. But it did. And now we both have to live with the consequences. What consequences? I pulled a manila envelope from my desk drawer and slid it across to her. Divorce papers. Preliminary ones. Just so we are both clear on what lies ahead. Greg Harlan drew them up yesterday. Vanessa opened the envelope with trembling hands. As she read, her face cycled through several different expressions: surprise, anger, fear. This gives you everything. The house, the business, even my retirement fund. Maine is an equitable distribution state, not community property. The judge looks at who contributed what to the marriage and divides things accordingly. I have been supporting both of us for the last 3 years while you saved your salary for. What exactly? Your getaway fund. I was trying to be responsible. You were trying to cover your bases. Well, congratulations. You covered them so well that you boxed yourself out of half of everything. Vanessa pushed the papers aside. What do you want from me, Derek? Do you want me to beg? To apologize? To promise I will never see Trent again? I want you to understand that actions have consequences. You made a choice, and now you have to live with it. No going back, no second chances, no arrangements that let you have your cake and eat it too. My phone rang. Trent Caldwell's number. Answer it, Vanessa said quickly. Please, Derek. Let me talk to him. I hit the speaker button. Nolan's auto. Derek, it is Trent Caldwell. I think we need to have a conversation. About what, Trent? About Vanessa. About the situation we are all in. I looked at Vanessa, who was shaking her head frantically. What situation, Trent? Look, I know you are angry, and I get it. But taking it out on Vanessa is not going to solve anything. She needs her car, and she needs access to her money. Her car was sold, and the money is tied up in legal proceedings. Divorce gets complicated like that. There was a silence. Nobody said anything about divorce. I did. About 5 minutes ago. Vanessa can fill you in on the details. Derek, be reasonable. We are all adults here. We can figure out a solution that works for everyone. I looked at Vanessa, who was staring at the phone like it was about to explode. Works for everyone? That is an interesting concept. What did you have in mind, Trent? Why do not we grab a drink tonight? The three of us. We can hash this out like civilized people. The three of us. Like some kind of negotiation. Like three people trying to find a mutually beneficial arrangement. I smiled at Vanessa, who looked like she was going to be sick. You know what, Trent? That sounds like a great idea. How about the Rusty Anchor at 8 in the evening? Rita makes a killer martini. The Rusty Anchor? That is a little public, is it not? Maybe somewhere more private. Trent, if we are going to discuss my marriage, I want witnesses. Lots of them. See you at 8. I hung up and looked at Vanessa. Well, this promises to be interesting. Derek, please do not do this. Trent does not understand small towns. He does not know how people talk. Then maybe it is time he learned. The Rusty Anchor was packed by 7:30 in the evening. Word had gotten around town that Derek Nolan was having a drink with his wife and her former boyfriend, and half of Bayport had suddenly decided they needed a beer that night. Rita had wisely called an extra staff, and the atmosphere was electric, thick with anticipation. I arrived first, claiming a table right in the center of the room where everyone could see and hear everything. Hank was already there, sitting at the bar with old man Walt Simmons, my 70-year-old neighbor who had retired from the state police 5 years ago. Rita brought me a beer without asking. Full house tonight, she noted. News travels fast in a small town. You can say that again, Derek. Whatever you are planning, just remember everyone is watching. That is exactly what I am counting on. Vanessa and Trent arrived together at 8:15 in the evening. Trent looked like he had stepped straight out of a yacht club catalog. Chino pants, a polo shirt, boat shoes with no socks. Vanessa had dressed down for the occasion, probably hoping to blend in, but she still looked more like she was headed to a business meeting than grabbing a drink with her husband. They approached my table cautiously, Trent leading the way with his hand on the small of Vanessa's back. The gesture was possessive, territorial, and everyone in the bar noticed it. Derek, Trent said, holding out his hand. Thanks for agreeing to meet with us. I did not shake his hand. Trent, Vanessa, please have a seat. Can I get you a drink? Trent ordered a neat scotch. Vanessa asked for white wine. Rita brought the drinks over herself, lingering just long enough to make it clear she was listening to every word. So, Trent said, settling into his chair. Here we are, I confirmed. 3 adults having a civilized conversation about my wife's inappropriate relationship. Several conversations at nearby tables died down. Trent glanced nervously around the room, realizing for the first time that we had an audience. Maybe we should keep our voices down, he suggested. Why? Are you ashamed of something? Vanessa leaned forward. Derek, please. Let us just talk about this reasonably. I am being very reasonable. Trent wanted to discuss the situation, so let us discuss it. Trent, why do not you start by explaining your position? Trent took a sip of his scotch, gathering his thoughts. Look, Derek, I know this is awkward. Nobody planned for things to happen this way. Things do not just happen, Trent. People make choices. Vanessa chose to start this relationship with you. You chose to get involved with a married woman. Those are deliberate decisions. Sometimes people fall in love despite the circumstances. Love, I repeated. Is that what we are calling it? I pulled out my phone and opened the screenshots of the text messages I had taken from Vanessa's tablet. Let me read you a little bit of that, Trent. This one is from Vanessa to you, dated last Tuesday. I cannot wait to see you again. Derek is working late, so we have the whole evening. Vanessa's face went ashen. Trent looked like he wanted to crawl under the table. The bar had gone completely silent. Or how about this one? From you to her. Hotel room booked for Saturday. Tell the mechanic you are having a girls' night with Kayla. Derek, stop, Vanessa whispered. The mechanic. That is what you call me in your little private conversations, is it not? Not your husband, not Derek. The mechanic. Trent found his voice again. Those messages were private. Oh, really? Because according to this group chat Vanessa has with her girlfriends, your private business has been entertainment for half the women in this town. I swiped to another screenshot. Here is Kayla, Vanessa's best friend since high school. Girl, you have the best of both worlds. Financial security with Derek and excitement with Trent. You are living the dream. Kayla, who had just walked into the bar with her husband, froze in her tracks. Every eye in the room turned to her. And here is Lindsay from Vanessa's office. Make sure you take pictures of the hotel room. I want to live vicariously through your exciting side. Trent stood up abruptly. That is enough. Sit down, Trent. We are just getting started. I do not have to sit here and listen to this. Actually, you do? You see, you wanted to have a conversation so we could figure out a solution. Well, this is me figuring out a solution. In public, with witnesses. Just like you suggested. Trent remained standing, his face flushed with anger and embarrassment. You are humiliating Vanessa. I am not humiliating anyone. I am just sharing some texts. Vanessa's own words. Your own words, Trent. If they are humiliating, maybe you should have thought about that before you sent them. Vanessa was crying now, silent tears she was trying to wipe away discreetly. Please, Derek. Make it stop. Make what stop? Stop telling the truth? Stop sharing your private thoughts with the community? But Vanessa, I thought you wanted honesty. I thought you wanted everything out on the table. Old man Walt got up from his bar stool and walked over to our table. He was an imposing figure, even in his 70s, with the kind of quiet authority that comes from 30 years on the force. Derek, mind if I join you? Not at all, Walt. Pull up a chair. Walt sat down and stared directly at Trent. You are Trent Caldwell, right? The guy who owns the boat business down at the marina. That is right. Thought so. I have been hearing some interesting things about you lately. Trent's confidence was evaporating by the second. What kind of things? Well, for instance, I heard you were telling people that Derek here is unstable, dangerous. That he might even do something if he found out about you and his wife. I never said that. Walt pulled out his phone. The funny thing about modern technology is that sometimes conversations get recorded by accident. Like the one you had with Matt Whitaker last week. He hit play, and Trent's voice echoed through the bar. If the husband finds out, he could be a problem. These working-class guys, they do not think rationally. They just react. I am worried he might try to hurt me or come after my business. Trent looked sick. That was taken out of context. Really? Because it sounds to me like you were planning to paint Derek as a threat if your relationship ever came to light. Sounds like you were setting up a narrative where you are the victim and he is the bad guy. That is not what I meant. Then what did you mean, son? Trent looked around the bar, realizing that every single person in the room was staring at him with varying degrees of disgust and contempt. I think I should go. Good idea, I said. But Trent, next time you want to have a conversation about my marriage, maybe we should do it in private. This whole public forum thing is a bit of a minefield, would not you say? Trent threw a $20 bill on the table and practically ran for the door. Vanessa started to follow him, but I caught her arm. Stay, I said quietly. Finish your drink. Face the music. She sank back into her chair, her hands trembling. The volume in the bar slowly returned to normal, but I could feel the weight of everyone's attention still focused on our table. That was cruel, Vanessa said. That was honest. You wanted everything out on the table, remember? No more secrets, no more lies. Well, congratulations. Mission accomplished. Walt leaned back in his chair. Vanessa, I have known you since you were a little girl. Your parents are good people. What do you think they are going to say when they hear about this? Vanessa's tears fell faster. They do not have to know. Sweetheart, this is Bayport. Everyone will know by tomorrow morning. The question is, what are you going to do about it? She looked at me with what might have been hope. Derek, what do you want me to do? I want you to go home. Our home. I want you to think about what you threw away for a few months of excitement with a man who was ready to frame me as a threat just to protect his own reputation. And then we will see if there is anything left to salvage. Vanessa finished her wine and stood up slowly. I am going to need a ride. Kayla left. Hank will take you, I said. Well, not you, Hank. Hank nodded. Be my pleasure, Mrs. Nolan. After they left, Walt and I sat in a comfortable silence for a few minutes. Rita brought us fresh beers. That was well played, Derek, Walt finally said. But you know this is not over, right? I know. Trent is not the type to go quietly, and Vanessa has too much pride to just accept defeat. So, what is your next move? I smiled. Depends on what they do. But I have a few ideas. Trent's retaliation came quicker than I expected. By Thursday morning, someone had spray-painted Psycho across the front window of my shop. They had also slashed 2 tires on my truck and left a rotting fish on my doorstep. Subtle as a brick through a window, but effective enough to send a message. I called Walt first, then the police. Officer Riley took pictures and filed a report, but we all knew the chances of proving Trent was responsible were slim to none. Still, it was on the record, and that might matter later. Derek, you need to be careful, Riley warned me. These things have a way of escalating. I am always careful, Tony. But I am not going to hide in my house because some boat salesman wants to play tough guy. Hank showed up an hour later with a thermos of coffee and a grim expression. Saw the damage from the street. That kid has more guts than brains. Help me clean this up. I have customers coming in this afternoon. We spent the morning scraping paint and changing tires. Word of the vandalism spread fast, and by noon, I had already had visits from 3 different neighbors offering to keep an eye on the place. Mrs. Wilkins, who lived across the street, brought me a casserole and promised to call the cops if she saw anyone suspicious. That Trent Caldwell is no good, she declared. Never was, even in high school. His poor parents tried their best, but sometimes the apple just falls too far from the tree. Around 2 in the afternoon, Matt Whitaker showed up. Trent's business partner looked nervous and kept glancing around as if he expected someone to jump out from behind a car. Derek, can we talk in private? I let him into the office and closed the door. Matt was sweating despite the cool October air. I want you to know I had nothing to do with what happened to your shop this morning. I figured as much, Matt. You are not the type. Trent is losing his mind over this whole situation. He is talking about hiring a lawyer, maybe filing harassment charges against you. Harassment charges? For what? He says you are stalking him, following him around town, making threats. I laughed. I have not left this shop except to go home and to the Rusty Anchor. Half the town can vouch for my whereabouts. I know that, and you know that. But Trent has convinced himself you are some kind of threat. He is talking about getting a restraining order. Let him try. The discovery phase should be interesting. Matt wiped his forehead with a handkerchief. Derek, I need this partnership to work. I have everything invested in this business. If Trent keeps stirring up trouble, it is going to hurt both of us. What do you want me to do about it? Maybe you could just back off a little? Let things cool down. Matt, I have not done anything except defend myself and my marriage. If that is stirring up trouble, then maybe I am not the problem here. I know. It is just. Trent has connections in Portland. People who might not understand the dynamics of a small town. If this gets ugly, it could affect our business relationships. I studied Matt's face. He was a decent guy stuck in a bad spot, trying to protect his investment while his partner self-destructed. I will tell you what, Matt. I will make you a deal. You keep Trent away from my property and my business, and I will keep our personal problems personal. But if he comes after me again, all bets are off. What does that mean? It means I have enough evidence of his relationship with my wife to make his life very uncomfortable in this town. Texts, hotel receipts, eyewitness accounts. The kind of stuff that might interest those other business connections of his, especially the married ones. Matt's face turned pale. You would destroy his reputation. I would defend mine. There is a difference. After Matt left, I spent the rest of the afternoon working on Mrs. Becker's Buick and thinking about endgame strategies. Trent was escalating because he felt cornered, but he was also making mistakes. The vandalism had turned public opinion even further against him, and his threats of legal action made him look desperate. Vanessa had not come home the night before. According to Hank, she had stayed at Kayla's, probably planning her next move. I expected her to show up eventually, likely with some kind of ultimatum or peace offering. She arrived right at closing time, looking tired and defeated. She had been crying recently, and her clothes looked like she had slept in them. Derek, we have to stop this. All of it. I am listening. Trent is talking about leaving town. His partner is threatening to dissolve their business, and half his clients are canceling their contracts. He says it is all your fault. Because of what you did at the bar. What I did was tell the truth. If that is causing him problems, maybe he should have thought about that before he started this relationship. He is blaming everything on me. He says I led him on, that I made him think you would not care. Do I? Vanessa was silent for a long time. I do not know anymore. I thought I knew what I wanted. But everything is such a mess now. Vanessa, what do you really want? I want my life back. I want to go back to before all this happened. That is not possible. What is done is done. So what happens now? I pulled the divorce papers out of my desk drawer. Now, you decide what kind of future you want. Sign these, and we split everything according to the law. Do not sign them. and we see if there is anything left to rebuild. And if I do not sign them, what would that rebuilding look like? Therapy. Absolute honesty about everything that happened. Zero contact with Trent, ever again. And you would have to live with the fact that everyone in town knows what you did. Vanessa picked up the papers and read through them again. This would leave me with almost nothing. It would leave you with a clean slate and no obligations to anyone, including me. I would have to leave Bayport, start over somewhere else. Maybe. Or maybe you would find a way to rebuild your reputation here. Small towns have long memories, but they also believe in redemption if it is genuine. She set the papers down. What would you do if you were me? I would figure out what I actually want, not what I think I want. And then I would have the courage to pursue it honestly. Vanessa was quiet for several minutes, staring out the window at the harbor where Trent's office sat dark and empty. He is not who I thought he was, she finally said. People rarely are. We see what we want to see, especially when we are unhappy. Were you unhappy, Derek? Sometimes. But I thought we were working through it together. I did not know you had already decided to work through it with someone else. She nodded slowly. I am going to sign the papers. Are you sure? I am sure. But Derek, I want you to know I really did love you. I still do in my own way. I know. I loved you too. That is what makes this so hard. Vanessa signed the divorce papers with a pen that had been sitting on my desk for 8 years. The same pen I had used to sign the lease for the shop, the mortgage for our house, every document that had built our life together. What happens now? She asked. Now, you start over. And so do I. She stood up and walked to the door, then turned back one last time. For what it is worth, I am sorry about all of this. I know. That is something, at least. After she left, I sat in the quiet of the shop and watched the sun go down over Bayport Harbor. Tomorrow, I would start the process of rebuilding my life, of figuring out what comes next for a 35-year-old divorced mechanic in a small town in Maine. But tonight, I had won. Not the way I wanted to win, and not the prize I wanted to claim. But I had stood my ground and refused to be anyone's safety net or consolation prize. I locked up the shop and drove home through the familiar streets, passing the rusty anchor where Rita was probably already spreading the news, passing the harbor where Trent's business was quietly falling apart, passing all the places where my old life had played out. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new possibilities, new choices to make. But tonight, I was free, and that was enough. The house felt different when I walked in. Emptier, but somehow cleaner. I made myself a sandwich and sat at the kitchen table where it all started, looking at the pile of bills that had seemed so important just a week ago. My phone buzzed with a text from Hank. Heard the news. You okay? I replied, better than okay. See you tomorrow. And for the first time in months, I really meant it. Comment. Hey, everyone. This story really made me pause and reflect on how important it is to value our own self-respect. I believe we all deserve to be treated with genuine dignity in our relationships. Sometimes, the healthiest choice we can make is to set clear boundaries when someone crosses the line. You never have to accept being treated as a backup plan or a safety net. Taking responsibility for your own peace of mind is one of the most powerful things you can do. Protecting your boundaries with calm confidence is necessary for true healing. If you're going through something difficult right now, please remember that you are worthy of real love and respect. Choosing peace over chaos can open the door to a much better chapter in life. Let's all try to show ourselves more kindness and make decisions that support our well-being. I'd love to hear what this made you think about in the comments below. If you like the stories, don't forget to leave a comment and support the channel by subscribing. See you in the upcoming stories.